My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for the past 5 years, my family thought I was nothing more than a janitor at NextGen Technologies. They weren't entirely wrong. I did work as a janitor there, but what they didn't know was that I also owned the company. I never planned it this way. Growing up in the prestigious Mitchell family, I was expected to follow a certain path. My sister Olivia became a corporate lawyer, my brother Marcus was an investment banker, and I was always the odd one out. A business degree from a state school. My mother had scoffed when I graduated. Olivia went to Harvard Law. Marcus went to Wharton. What happened to you, Sarah? What happened was that I had a different vision. While they chased prestigious titles and corner offices, I saw an opportunity that nobody else noticed. It started during my senior year of college when I interned at a small tech startup. The founders were brilliant programmers but had no business sense. Within 3 months, they went bankrupt. That's when I realized something. The tech industry was full of brilliant minds who didn't understand business fundamentals. They needed someone who could bridge the gap between innovation and profitability. Someone like me. After graduation, I took my modest savings and started buying shares in struggling tech companies. My family thought I was wasting my time. Playing with penny stocks while your siblings are building real careers, my father would say, shaking his head in disappointment. Then came the opportunity that would change everything. NextGen Technologies was a failing startup with revolutionary ad technology. Their CEO had just quit, their stock was worthless, and they were weeks away from bankruptcy. Using everything I had, plus a loan from my grandmother, the only person who ever believed in me, I quietly bought a controlling interest through a series of shell companies. But I knew that walking in as a 25-year-old female CEO would trigger immediate resistance. So I made a decision that would shape the next 5 years of my life. I took a job as the company's night janitor. A janitor? Olivia had laughed when I told the family. Oh, Sarah, this is a new low, even for you. At least try to get a real job in the company. Little did she know, I was already revolutionizing NextGen from the inside out. During the day, I worked remotely as the mysterious CEO who communicated only through email and video calls using voice modulation software. At night, I cleaned offices while observing everything happening in the company. It was the perfect cover. Nobody suspects the janitor. Nobody watches what they say around the cleaning staff. I learned about every office drama, every project challenge, every employee concern. I knew who was productive and who was just playing politics. I understood my company in a way no regular CEO ever could. Years passed and NextGen Technologies transformed. Our AI technology became industry-leading. Our stock price soared. We expanded globally. Meanwhile, my family's pity for me grew stronger. Still mopping floors, Sarah? Marcus would ask at every family gathering. You know, I could get you an entry-level position at my bank. At least it would be respectable. My mother took every opportunity to compare me to my siblings. Olivia just made partner at her law firm. Marcus is handling billion-dollar mergers, and Sarah, well, at least she's employed. Each comment stung, but I kept quiet. I focused on building something extraordinary while they focused on appearances. My sister bought a mansion she could barely afford. My brother leased luxury cars to impress clients. I lived in a modest apartment and drove a used car, investing everything back into NextGen. Then came last week's annual family reunion. As usual, it was held at my parents' sprawling estate, where success was measured by the size of your house and the brand of your watch. I arrived in my old Toyota, wearing the same dress I'd worn last year. Oh honey, my mother sighed, eyeing my outfit. You know we could help you if you're struggling. There's no shame in asking for help. I just smiled and took my usual seat at the far end of the table, away from the successful members of the family. Dinner conversation revolved around Olivia's latest high-profile case and Marcus's upcoming merger deal. Speaking of mergers, my father suddenly announced, I heard NextGen Technologies is acquiring Sullivan Systems for $2 billion. Incredible how that company turned around. Sarah, you work there. Did you hear anything about this while cleaning the offices? I took a sip of water, hiding my smile. Actually, yes, I did hear something about that. Olivia rolled her eyes. What would a janitor know about billion-dollar acquisitions? I bet she doesn't even understand what a merger is. That's when I decided it was time. 5 years of hiding, of being underestimated, of swallowing their condescension. It was enough. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Hi, Lisa. Yes, please proceed with the press release we discussed and email the merger documents to the Mitchell family lawyers. Yes, all of them. The table fell silent. Olivia's phone buzzed first. She opened the email, her face turning pale as she read. Marcus's phone buzzed next, followed by several other relatives who worked in corporate law or finance. This must be a mistake, Olivia stammered, staring at her screen. This says the CEO of NextGen Technologies is Sarah Mitchell? I stood up slowly, enjoying the shocked expressions around the table. Not a mistake, sister dear. I've been CEO of NextGen for the past 5 years. Did you really think I was just cleaning offices all this time? The chaos that erupted next was worth every moment of the past 5 years. My mother dropped her wine glass. My father started choking on his steak. Olivia kept opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. But, you're a janitor, Marcus spluttered. I was a janitor, I corrected him, and also the CEO. Amazing what you can learn about a company when nobody notices you're there. By the way, Olivia, your law firm is representing Sullivan Systems in the merger. I look forward to seeing you in the negotiations. I picked up my bag and headed for the door, pausing just long enough to savor the absolute silence behind me. Oh, and Mom, don't worry about my outfit. I could buy this house and everything in it with what I made just this morning. But unlike some people, I don't need expensive things to prove my worth. As I walked to my car, my phone started buzzing with messages. Suddenly, relatives who had ignored me for years were desperate to talk. My brother, who had never asked about my life, was now keenly interested in catching up. And my sister, who had spent years mocking my career choices, was frantically trying to schedule a lunch meeting. But this was just the beginning. Tomorrow, I would walk into NextGen's headquarters through the front door for the first time as CEO. And my family, well, they were about to learn that success doesn't always wear designer labels or come with an Ivy League degree. The next morning, I stood in front of NextGen Technologies' gleaming headquarters, my hand resting on the door handle. For 5 years, I had only entered through the back service entrance, always after hours. Today would be different. As I pushed open the glass doors, the security guard who had seen me countless times mopping these same floors did a double take. Ms. Mitchell? I smiled, pulling out my CEO badge, the one that had stayed hidden in my desk drawer all these years. Good morning, Steve. And yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. The lobby fell silent as I walked toward the elevator. Employees who had barely noticed me before now stood frozen, coffee cups suspended midway to their mouths. I heard whispers, saw fingers pointing, noticed phones being pulled out to confirm what they were seeing. Is that the janitor? No way. She's the CEO. I thought the CEO was some reclusive genius who never showed up in person. The executive floor was even better. Jessica, my sister Olivia's best friend and NextGen's head of legal, nearly spilled her latte when I walked into the executive suite. She had spent years treating me like invisible. Now she couldn't take her eyes off me. Sarah? What are you? How? Hello, Jessica. I believe we have a merger meeting in 10 minutes. I've been looking forward to working with you directly instead of through emails. I walked into my office, my real office, for the first time. The nameplate on the door read Sarah Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer. The view of the city skyline was exactly as I remembered from my nights cleaning the windows. But now, finally, I could sit on the other side of the desk. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since last night. 37 missed calls from my mother, 23 from Olivia, 15 from Marcus. Dozens of messages from other relatives who had suddenly discovered my existence. I opened one from my sister. Sarah, we need to talk. What you did last night was completely inappropriate. Do you have any idea how this makes our family look? Mom is devastated. Call me immediately. I deleted it without responding. Then came a message from Marcus. Hey sis, about all those times I offered you an entry-level job. I was just trying to help. Look, my investment firm would love to handle NextGen's portfolio. Family discount? Let's do lunch. Delete. My assistant Lisa knocked on the door. Ms. Mitchell, your 9 a.m. is here. The Sullivan Systems merger team, including your sister's law firm. I straightened my jacket, not designer, but impeccably tailored. Send them in. Olivia walked in first, her usual confident strut notably absent. Behind her, a team of lawyers clutched their briefcases like shields. My sister's face was a battlefield of conflicting emotions, embarrassment, anger, and a desperate attempt to maintain professional composure. Sarah, she managed, her voice strained. We weren't expecting. Clearly, I said, gesturing for everyone to sit. Now, about the merger terms. I believe your initial proposal significantly undervalues NextGen's AI technology. Let's discuss real numbers. For the next 2 hours, I dismantled every argument she presented. Years of watching, listening, and learning while invisible had taught me everything about our technology, our value, and our potential. Olivia, who had always prided herself on being the smartest person in any room, was completely outmatched. When the meeting ended, she lingered behind. How long were you going to keep this charade going? She demanded once we were alone. Do you have any idea how foolish our family looks now? I leaned back in my chair, my CEO chair, and looked at her carefully. Foolish? You mean like mocking your sister for years without bothering to know anything about her life? Like assuming someone's worth is measured by their job title. That's not fair. We were worried about you. Living in that tiny apartment, working as a janitor. While secretly building a billion-dollar company, I finished for her. Here's what's not fair, Olivia. Spending years being treated like a failure by my own family because I didn't fit their definition of success. But why pretend to be a janitor? Why not just tell us? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city I had helped build. Because I needed to understand this company from the ground up. Because being invisible taught me more than sitting in this office ever could. And because I wanted to succeed or fail on my own terms, not as a Mitchell. My phone buzzed again. My mother calling for the 38th time. I declined the call. Mom's hosting an emergency family dinner tonight, Olivia said quietly. She's insisting you come. Of course she is, I replied. Now that I'm successful by her standards, she wants to play the proud mother, but I'm not interested in her approval anymore. Sarah, please, you have to understand. This is a lot for them to process. Finding out their daughter, who they thought was struggling, is actually a secret CEO. It's overwhelming. I turned to face her. Overwhelming? Try being 19 and having your mother tell you you're a disappointment because you chose a state school. Try watching your family praise your siblings for every small achievement while ignoring your existence. Try sitting through family dinners where everyone treats you like a charity case. Olivia had the grace to look ashamed. I never meant to hurt you. No, you just never thought about me at all. Unless it was to make yourself feel better about your own choices. The intercom buzzed. Liz's voice came through. Ms. Mitchell, your parents are here. They're quite insistent on seeing you. I sighed. Of course they were. Send them in. My mother burst through the door first, designer handbag swinging wildly. My father followed, looking uncomfortable in the unfamiliar environment. The last time they had visited NextGen, they had commented on how their poor Sarah couldn't even afford to work in a prestigious building like this. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. My mother's voice could have shattered windows. How dare you humiliate our family like this? Do you have any idea what people are saying? The daughter of Jonathan and Eleanor Mitchell, working as a janitor. It's all over social media. I met her gaze steadily. Correction. The daughter of Jonathan and Eleanor Mitchell, building a successful company while working as a janitor. Isn't that what you always wanted? For me to be successful? But, this isn't how it's done, she spluttered. The Mitchells have a reputation to maintain. We don't clean floors. No, I agreed. You just look down on people who do. Tell me, Mother, what's more important, that I built something meaningful, or that I did it in a way that embarrasses you? My father stepped forward, ever the businessman. Sarah, what your mother means is, well, this is quite unprecedented. But now that we know about your position, perhaps we can help. I have connections, experience. Like the experience that led you to call NextGen a doomed startup 5 years ago, I interrupted. The connections that wouldn't give us a second look when we were struggling. No thank you, Dad. I did this my way, and I'll continue doing it my way. But think of the family name, my mother pleaded. I have. That's why I didn't use it to succeed. Everything NextGen has achieved, we did it without the Mitchell name, without the Mitchell connections, without the Mitchell money. I walked around my desk, running my hand along the smooth wood. You know what I learned as a janitor. I learned who treats service workers with respect and who doesn't. I learned which employees stay late because they care about their work and which ones stay late to look good. I learned things about this company that I never could have learned from this office. But surely now you'll stop this cleaning nonsense, my mother said, smoothing her silk blouse nervously. I smiled. Actually, I still do maintenance rounds sometimes. It keeps me grounded, helps me remember where I started. In fact, I checked my watch. I'm scheduled to clean the third floor bathrooms in about an hour. My mother looked like she might faint. My father's jaw dropped. Even Olivia, who had been quietly watching this exchange, seemed shocked. You can't be serious, my mother whispered. A CEO cleaning bathrooms. Why not? Is it beneath me, or is it beneath you? The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my father spoke, his voice different somehow, softer, almost proud. You really built all this yourself, didn't you? Yes, Dad, all of it. He nodded slowly. I never saw it. Any of it. We were so focused on what we thought success should look like, that you missed what it actually looks like. I finished for him. My mother sank into a chair, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. All these years, we thought we were pushing you to be better, but you were already better than you imagined. Yes, but not in the way you measure success. I walked to the door and opened it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run and bathrooms to clean. Feel free to stop by tonight. I'll be mopping the lobby around 8. We can talk more then, if you're not too embarrassed to be seen with the janitor. After they left, I sat in my office, looking at the city lights coming on as dusk approached. My phone buzzed with yet another message, this time from my grandmother, the only one who had believed in me from the start. I always knew you'd do it your way, Sarah, and your way turned out to be the right way. I smiled, changed into my maintenance uniform, and grabbed my mop. Success doesn't always wear a designer suit or come with a prestigious degree. Sometimes it wears coveralls and carries cleaning supplies. Sometimes the best way to lead is to serve. And sometimes the person everyone looks down on is actually looking down on them from the top floor of the building they home. That night, as I mopped the lobby floors, I saw my family's car pull up outside. They stood there for a long moment, watching through the glass doors. Then, one by one, they walked away. They weren't ready yet to accept this version of success, this version of me. But that was okay. I hadn't built next-gen technologies for them. I had built it for the quiet ones, the overlooked ones, the ones who don't fit the traditional mold of success. And as I finished my rounds, turning off lights in offices where I had once been invisible, I knew I had succeeded in the most important way. I had become someone I was proud to be, regardless of who was watching. The last board meeting at Harrison Global ended exactly how they planned, with my humiliation. I sat at the massive mahogany table, watching my family members raise their hands one by one, voting to remove me from my own grandfather's company. The motion to remove Elizabeth Harrison from the board of directors passes unanimously, my Uncle Marcus announced, not even trying to hide his satisfaction. Effective immediately. I kept my face neutral, though my hands trembled beneath the table. At 28, I was too young to understand real business, according to them. Never mind that I had an MBA from Wharton. Never mind that I quadrupled the profits in my division. Never mind that Grandpa had specifically trained me to take over before he died. Elizabeth, my father's voice cut through my thoughts. Please gather your things from the executive office. Security will escort you out. Security, like I was some kind of threat. Of course, I replied smoothly, standing up. Though you might want to look at the Q3 projections before making any major decisions. The market's shifting. My cousin James snorted. The market's fine. You're just trying to scare us because you lost. Lost, if only they knew what was coming. I gathered my belongings under the watchful eye of Mike, our head of security, who had known me since I was a child. He looked uncomfortable with his assignment. I'm sorry, Miss Elizabeth, he muttered as we walked to the elevator. This isn't right. I smiled, patting his arm. Don't worry about it, Mike. Everything happens for a reason. The evening air felt crisp as I stepped out of Harrison Global's gleaming headquarters. Behind me, 30 floors of glass and steel reached into the Chicago skyline, a monument to my grandfather's vision. Alexander Harrison had built this company from nothing, turning a small manufacturing business into a global empire. And now his son and nephews thought they knew better than his chosen successor. My phone buzzed, a text from my cousin Patricia. That's what you get for playing with the big boys. Stick to charity work. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding. Patricia had always been jealous that Grandpa had chosen me to mentor, not her. Now she was probably celebrating with the others, thinking they finally put me in my place. The drive home to my lakeshore apartment gave me time to reflect on how we'd gotten here. It had started 3 months ago when I presented my analysis of the coming market changes. Manufacturing is shifting, I'd explained to the board. We need to adapt, invest in new technologies, or we'll be left behind. Uncle Marcus had laughed. The same way we've manufactured for 30 years works fine. You've been reading too many trendy business blogs. Our competitors are already adapting, I'd argued. If we don't move now. Enough, my father had interrupted. This company ran perfectly well before you came along with your modern ideas. Some of us have actual experience. Experience, that's what they call doing the same thing year after year, ignoring the changing world around them. To them, innovation was a threat, not an opportunity. In my apartment, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. A new email waited from David Chen, my old friend from business school. Everything's in place. The shares have been acquired through the shell companies. You now control 51% of Harrison Global. They won't know what hit them on Monday. I smiled, remembering the day I first called David with my plan. He thought I was crazy at first. You want to secretly buy control of your family's company? He'd asked. That would take millions. Good thing Grandpa left me millions then, I'd replied. Alexander Harrison might have seemed traditional to outsiders, but he'd been quietly revolutionary. While training me to take over the company, he'd also set up a private trust in my name, one my family knew nothing about. They'll try to push you out someday, he told me during one of our late-night strategy sessions. The old guard always fears new ideas. That's why I've made sure you'll have the resources to fight back. I opened a secure folder on my laptop, the one containing all the documentation of my careful share acquisitions over the past 3 months. Every time my family shot down one of my proposals, I bought more stock through various shell companies. Every time they belittled my ideas in meetings, I'd acquired another chunk of shares. They thought removing me from the board would silence me. Instead, it had freed me to make my final moves without scrutiny. My phone buzzed again. Another email from David. Legal team confirms everything's ready for Monday's shareholders meeting. Your proxy documents are ironclad. Perfect timing. Monday was the annual shareholders meeting, where my family would smugly present their vision for the company's future. The same vision they'd had for the past 30 years, but they were in for a surprise. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Angela Wong, my former assistant, holding a box of files. They don't know I took these, she said, stepping inside. But I thought you should have copies of all your market research. The analysis about the manufacturing changes, you were right. I took the box, touched by her loyalty. Thank you, Angela. But aren't you worried about your job? She straightened her shoulders. Mr. Harrison, your grandfather, once told me to always back the person with vision, not just the person with power. You have vision. After she left, I spent hours reviewing the files. Every projection I'd made 3 months ago was proving accurate. Our competitors were indeed shifting to new manufacturing technologies. The market was changing exactly as I predicted. Another text buzzed through. Uncle Marcus this time. Hope you've learned your lesson about respect. Maybe now you'll understand how business really works. I laughed out loud. Oh, Uncle Marcus, Monday would teach you all about how business really works. My phone lit up with a calendar reminder. Dinner with Marie, my grandfather's former secretary. She'd insisted on meeting tonight, saying she had something important to share. 2 hours later, I sat across from Marie at Gibson's Steakhouse, her favorite restaurant. At 72, she was still sharp as ever, her eyes missing nothing. I knew this day would come, she said, pulling an envelope from her purse. Your grandfather left this with me, said to give it to you when the board turned against you. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper, a letter in my grandfather's bold handwriting. My dearest Elizabeth, if you're reading this, then they've done exactly what I feared. Tried to push you out because they fear change. But remember what I taught you. True business leadership isn't about maintaining the status quo. It's about seeing the future and having the courage to chase it. I've left you the resources to fight back. Use them wisely. Show them that youth and vision are assets, not liabilities. And remember, The best revenge isn't just winning. It's winning while proving you were right all along. All my love, Grandpa. Marie watched me read the letter, a knowing smile on her face. He always said you were the only one who inherited his vision. The others? They inherited his name, but not his spirit. I tucked the letter carefully into my bag, feeling more certain than ever about my plan. They think business is about power, I said. About controlling others. Marie nodded. And what do you think it's about? Innovation, adaptation, building something that lasts. I smiled. And on Monday, I'll show them the difference. Back home, I reviewed everything one final time. The proxy documents, the share certificates, the market analysis proving I'd been right. My father called twice, probably to rub in my humiliation. But I let it go to voicemail. Let them all think they'd won. Let them celebrate their victory over the naive granddaughter who dared to challenge their outdated ideas. Because on Monday, everything would change. I opened my grandfather's letter again, drawing strength from his words. He'd seen this coming, had prepared me for it, had made sure I'd have the means to protect his true legacy. Monday couldn't come soon enough. Monday morning dawned bright and clear over Chicago's financial district. I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my grandmother's pearl necklace, the one she'd worn to every major business meeting. Today felt right to continue that tradition. The shareholders' meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. in Harrison Global's main conference center. I arrived at 8:30, nodding to Mike at security, who looked surprised to see me. Miss Elizabeth? The meeting is shareholders only. I smiled, handing him my credentials. Don't worry, Mike. I'm exactly where I need to be. The conference room was already filling up with shareholders, board members, and executives. My father and uncles clustered near the front, looking smug in their expensive suits. Cousin Patricia sat with her usual group of sycophants, probably sharing another round of jokes at my expense. David Chen met me at the door, laptop ready. Everything's set, he whispered. The proxy documents are loaded. Want to review them one last time? I shook my head. I've been reviewing them for 3 months. It's time to act. Uncle Marcus spotted me first. His face darkened as he strode over. This is a private meeting, for shareholders. I know, I replied calmly. That's why I'm here. Before he could respond, my father joined us. Elizabeth, this is embarrassing. Security will escort you out. Actually, David stepped forward. Ms. Harrison has every right to be here. As a major shareholder. The room fell silent. I could feel every eye turn toward us. What nonsense is this? Uncle Marcus demanded. You don't own any significant shares. We've tracked all major shareholders. I smiled. Did you track Phoenix Ventures, or Global Innovation Partners, or perhaps New Horizon Investments? My father's face paled. Those were the shell companies I used to acquire shares over the past 3 months. Impossible, he whispered. Those acquisitions would have required millions. Good thing Grandpa believed in planning ahead. I cut him off. Now shall we begin the meeting? I believe there are some changes to discuss. The next hour was a blur of legal documents, proxy revelations, and growing shock as my family realized exactly what had happened. Through careful planning and strategic acquisitions, I now controlled 51% of Harrison Global's shares. This is a trick, Patricia shouted, her composure cracking. She's too young to manage this much power. Too young? I stepped to the podium, pulling up my market analysis from 3 months ago. Let's talk about who really understands this business. One by one, I showed them how every prediction I'd made had come true. Our competitors' shift to new manufacturing technologies, the changing market dynamics, the dropping profits in our traditional sectors. While you were busy dismissing me as too young, I continued. Our main competitor launched this. I played a video announcement from our biggest rival, showcasing exactly the kind of innovation I pushed for. Their stock price has doubled since this launch. My father stood up. You can't just walk in here and... Actually, I can. As majority shareholder, I'm calling for an immediate board vote. I nodded to David, who distributed the prepared documents. The first item, reconstituting the board of directors. The next few minutes were chaos as my family realized they'd lost control. The new board would include experienced industry innovators, technical experts, and yes, me as chairwoman. This is betrayal, Uncle Marcus sputtered. Your grandfather would never. My grandfather, I cut in sharply, left me his shares in a secret trust for exactly this moment. He knew you would try to maintain the status quo at any cost, even if it meant destroying his legacy. I pulled out Grandpa's letter, reading it aloud. True business leadership isn't about maintaining the status quo. It's about seeing the future and having the courage to chase it. The room fell silent. You all thought being young meant being naive, I continued. You never wondered why Grandpa spent so much time teaching me, preparing me. He saw what you couldn't, that the business world is changing. We either change with it, or we die. I clicked to the next slide, my comprehensive plan for modernizing Harrison Global. New manufacturing technologies, sustainable practices, innovation centers. Everything I tried to propose 3 months ago. You can either be part of this transformation, I offered, or you can step aside. But Harrison Global will move forward. One by one, the old board members realized their position was untenable. My controlling share meant the vote was a formality. By noon, Harrison Global had a new board of directors and a new direction. As the shell-shocked shareholders filed out, Patricia stopped by my seat. How long? She demanded. How long have you been planning this? I met her eyes calmly. Since the day you all started dismissing every new idea as youthful inexperience. Sometimes, Patricia, being underestimated is the greatest advantage. The next few weeks were intense. Some family members resigned rather than work under my leadership. Others, seeing the wisdom in my plans, chose to adapt. My father struggled with the change but eventually admitted that maybe, just maybe, his daughter knew what she was doing. 3 months later, we launched our first major innovation initiative. The stock price jumped 30% in a week. 6 months after that, our modernized manufacturing process was outperforming all competitors. I sat in my grandfather's old office, my office now, looking at a photo of him from the day he'd founded the company. He'd been younger than me when he started, full of ideas that others had called impossible. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. It was Angela, now my chief of staff. The new board reports are ready, she said. And you'll want to see this. She handed me a financial magazine. The cover story? Harrison Global. How new leadership revolutionized a traditional company. My phone buzzed. A message from Uncle Marcus. You were right. About the market changes. About everything. I was too proud to see it. I smiled, touching my grandmother's pearls. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right so thoroughly that they have no choice but to acknowledge it. Another knock, this time David Chen. Ready for the innovation team meeting, they're excited to present the new proposals. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Lead the way. As we walked to the conference room, I passed the portrait wall, now updated to include all the company's innovators, not just the Harrison men. My grandfather's words echoed in my mind. The best revenge isn't just winning. It's winning while proving you were right all along. Looking at the eager faces of our innovation team, at the modernized facilities visible through the windows, at the future we were building, I knew he'd been right. They kicked me off the board for being too young to understand business. I'd come back as majority shareholder to show them what real business leadership looked like. And now Harrison Global wasn't just surviving, it was leading the future of manufacturing. Sometimes being underestimated is the greatest gift, because when people dismiss you, they never see you coming. Until it's too late. The end-of-year shareholders meeting painted a clear picture. Our stock price had doubled. Our innovations were setting industry standards. And those who had once dismissed me as too young to understand business, they were now taking notes on my vision for the future. Because in the end, true success isn't about age or tradition. It's about seeing what others can't, having the courage to chase it, and being strong enough to prove everyone wrong, even if that means taking over the company to do it. The vacuum's steady hum echoed through the empty halls of Barrett Technologies as I made my nightly rounds. 15 years of cleaning these offices had taught me every corner, every cubicle, every carelessly discarded secret left in waste paper baskets by executives too important to notice the night janitor. My name is Michael Chen, though most people here just called me the cleaning guy, when they bothered to acknowledge me at all. Tonight was different though. Tonight, as I pushed my cleaning cart past the executive offices, I allowed myself a small smile. Tomorrow, everything would change. Oh, sorry, didn't see you there. I looked up to find James Barrett Jr., the CEO's son and company VP, barely glancing at me as he rushed past, trailing papers from his briefcase. Classic Jimmy, as the other executives called him, always in a hurry, always dropping things, always expecting someone else to pick up after him. I bent down to collect the scattered documents, my eyes automatically scanning their contents out of habit. Merger proposals, acquisition terms, desperate attempts to save the company his father had built. Poor Jimmy had no idea that every dropped paper, every carelessly discarded draft over the years had helped me piece together Barrett Technologies' deepest secrets. "Just leave those on my desk," he called over his shoulder, already typing on his phone as he walked away. I carefully arranged the papers on his desk, adding them to my mental database of company intelligence. The latest financial reports showed exactly what I'd expected. Barrett Technologies was in trouble. Serious trouble. 15 years ago, when I first took this job, I wasn't just a janitor. I had an MBA from Stanford and a small inheritance from my grandmother. But I also had a plan. One that required patience, invisibility, and access to information that no one would willingly share with their competitors. So I became someone they would never notice. Just another face in maintenance coveralls, just another minimum wage worker blending into the background of their important lives. The perfect disguise. "Working late again, Mike?" Carol from accounting offered me a tired smile as she gathered her things to leave. She was one of the few who bothered to learn my name, who treated me like a human being rather than part of the furniture. "Someone's got to keep this place clean," I replied with my practiced humble smile. "Well, don't work too hard. Big changes coming tomorrow, from what I hear. Some mystery company buying us out." "Is that so?" I kept my voice casual, hiding my amusement. "Hope they're good employers." "Better be. Place won't be the same without the Barretts in charge," she sighed, heading for the elevator. "Good night, Mike." If only she knew. As I cleaned the conference room where tomorrow's acquisition meeting would take place, I remembered the first time I realized how invisible I truly was to these people. It was during my second week on the job. Cleaning the executive floor late one night. Two senior VPs had been discussing sensitive merger details, never even pausing their conversation as I emptied their trash bins. I was right there, 3 feet away, but to them I didn't exist. I was just part of the building's infrastructure, like the air conditioning or the water pipes. That's when I understood the power of my position. In their arrogance, they had given me the perfect cover. While they focused on their spreadsheets and PowerPoints, I was learning everything about their company, their strengths, their weaknesses, their secrets. I invested my inheritance wisely, using the inside knowledge I gained after hours. Small investments at first, then larger ones as my wealth grew. Shell companies, holding corporations, a complex web of ownership that all led back to me, though nobody knew that, of course. "Hey, janitor." I turned to find Marcus Sterling, head of sales, snapping his fingers at me. Classic Marcus, treating everyone below VP level like servants. "There's coffee all over my desk. Clean it up." I nodded meekly, grabbing paper towels from my cart. The spill had damaged several documents, merger details, I noticed as I carefully blotted them dry. More pieces of the puzzle I'd been assembling for 15 years. "And be careful with those papers," he barked. "Confidential business stuff, not that you'd understand." If he only knew how much I understood. How I'd used their own carelessness, their own arrogance, to build something bigger than Barrett Technologies could ever imagine. Later that night, in my real office across town, a penthouse suite with a view of the city, I reviewed the final acquisition documents. Tomorrow, Platinum Ridge Capital, my holding company, would acquire Barrett Technologies. The board had already approved the sale, eager for the generous bailout I'd offered. My assistant, Sarah, brought in the latest reports. She was one of only 3 people who knew my true identity. "Everything's ready for tomorrow," she said. "The lawyers have triple-checked all the paperwork. The press release is prepared. And the photographers will be ready to capture the exact moment they realize who's buying them." I smiled, thinking of James Barrett Jr.'s casual dismissal, Marcus Sterling's condescension, all the executives who had walked past me for 15 years without a second glance. "Their faces should be interesting," I said, signing the final documents, especially when they realize how much of their own downfall they shared with just the cleaning guy. Because that was the beautiful irony. While they were busy protecting their secrets from corporate spies and competitor CEOs, they had handed those same secrets to me. piece by piece, night after night. Every confidential document carelessly left on a desk, every late-night conversation they had while I vacuumed nearby, every password casually written on a post-it note and thrown in the trash. It all helped me build my empire. What about the employees? Sarah asked. The ones who weren't part of management's arrogance? Already taken care of, I assured her. Carol from accounting will be promoted to CFO. She has the skills, just never got the chance because she wasn't part of the boys' club. Several other talented people will finally get the recognition they deserve. I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, the Barrett Technologies executives were enjoying their last night of complacent superiority. Tomorrow, they would learn that the man they had stepped over, ignored, and dismissed for 15 years was about to become their boss. Their security badges for tomorrow's meeting, I asked. Sarah handed me a stack of fresh ID cards. All set. Though I doubt they'll recognize you in a suit instead of coveralls. I picked up James Barrett Jr.'s badge, remembering all the times he'd walked past me without a glance. That's okay. They'll have plenty of time to learn my face now. As I drove home that night to my real house, not the modest apartment listed on my janitor's employment records, I thought about how tomorrow would unfold. The shock on their faces, the dawning realization of how completely they had underestimated me. Because that's the thing about being invisible, it lets you see everything, learn everything, understand everything. While they were busy playing office politics and protecting their turf, I was building something far bigger, something they never saw coming. Tomorrow, they would finally see me, and I had 15 years of receipts to show them. The morning of the acquisition meeting, I stood in my penthouse dressing room, transforming myself from a humble janitor they knew into the CEO I truly was. The maintenance coveralls were replaced by a bespoke suit that cost more than most Barrett executives made in a month. My carefully maintained stooped posture straightened into one of natural authority. Sarah arrived with my briefing documents, a hint of excitement in her usually professional demeanor. The Barrett executives are already gathering in the conference room. James Jr. just complained to 3 people that the cleaning staff did a terrible job last night. I smiled, adjusting my tie. Did he notice that his office wasn't cleaned at all? He did. Threw quite a tantrum about it. She paused, checking her tablet. The photographers are in position and the security team has been briefed. Everyone's ready for your entrance. The Barrett Technologies headquarters looked different in the morning light. For 15 years, I'd only seen these halls after hours, empty except for security guards and fellow maintenance staff. Now the building buzzed with nervous energy as employees whispered about the mysterious buyer. I took the executive elevator, the same one I'd been told never to use as a janitor, to the top floor. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see them all gathered. James Barrett Jr., Marcus Sterling, and the rest of the executive team who had spent years looking through me. They just asked security where the Platinum Ridge representatives are, Sarah murmured. James Jr. is particularly anxious about being kept waiting. Perfect. I straightened my shoulders. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. The room fell silent as I walked in. For a moment, there was only confusion on their faces, the vague discomfort of people trying to place a familiar face in an unfamiliar context. Where are the Platinum Ridge executives? James Jr. demanded, not even bothering to look at me properly. We've been waiting for 20 minutes. I walked calmly to the head of the table, setting my briefcase down with a quiet click. I am Platinum Ridge Capital, I said simply. Marcus Sterling frowned. I'm sorry, who are you exactly? You know me as Mike, I replied, enjoying the way their eyes widened. The night janitor. Though my real name is Michael Chen, CEO of Platinum Ridge Capital and your new owner. The silence that followed was absolute. James Jr.'s face had gone pale, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Marcus Sterling had knocked over his water glass, but didn't even notice the liquid spreading across his papers. This is a joke, James Jr. finally managed. You're the cleaning guy. The janitor. Was the janitor, I corrected him. For 15 years, while you were all too busy feeling important to notice the man cleaning your offices, I was learning everything about this company. Every secret, every weakness, every opportunity you missed because of your own arrogance. I opened my briefcase, removing a stack of familiar papers. For instance, these merger proposals you kept dropping, James. Did you ever wonder why those deals kept falling through? My companies bought out your potential partners before you could close the deals. James Jr. slumped in his chair as recognition finally hit him. All those failed mergers were orchestrated by me, I confirmed. Just like the client losses that forced your stock price down. The strategic missteps that cost you market share. I knew your playbook because you never bothered to hide it from just the cleaning guy. Marcus Sterling's face had turned an interesting shade of red. You spied on us. That's illegal. Spied? I laughed softly. I simply paid attention to what you willingly shared. Like those confidential reports you left on your desk every night. Or those late-night strategy meetings you held while I vacuumed nearby. You never even paused your conversations when I was in the room. I was invisible to you. I pressed a button, and the screen behind me lit up with years of photographs. Documents left in plain sight, conversations held in my presence, passwords carelessly discarded in trash bins. Your arrogance was your downfall, I continued. You were so busy watching out for corporate spies and competitor CEOs that you never noticed the perfect spy was already inside your offices, wearing a maintenance uniform and carrying a mop. Why? James Jr. whispered. Why go to all this trouble? Because 15 years ago, when I first started working here, I learned something valuable about people like you. You judge someone's worth by their title, their clothes, their position. You never consider that the person emptying your trash might have an MBA from Stanford, or that the man cleaning your coffee spills might understand your business better than you do. I stood up, straightening my jacket. As of this morning, Platinum Ridge Capital owns 51% of Barrett Technologies. The board approved the sale last week, though I'm sure you all knew that, even if you didn't know who the buyer was. You can't do this, Marcus protested weakly. You're just a janitor. I finished for him. Not anymore. Now I'm your boss. And there are going to be some changes around here. I nodded to Sarah, who began distributing new documents. First, the executive team is being restructured. James, Marcus, your services are no longer required. Your severance packages are detailed in those folders. You're firing us? James Jr. sputtered. Consider it karma. Oh, and James, next time someone tells you they cleaned up a coffee spill on your desk, you might want to thank them. They may end up buying your company one day. As the stunned executives filed out, some already calling their lawyers, I turned to the remaining employees in the room. Carol from accounting, congratulations on your promotion to CFO. You've earned it. Carol's eyes widened in shock, then understanding. All those times we talked during your night shifts. I saw your potential, I confirmed. Just like I saw how this company wasted talent because they were too focused on maintaining their boys' club. The next few hours were a blur of paperwork, press releases, and restructuring announcements. By afternoon, business news channels were running the story. Night Janitor revealed as billionaire CEO in shocking corporate takeover. Later that evening, as I sat in what had been James Barrett Jr.'s office, Sarah brought in a familiar cleaning cart. For old time's sake, she suggested with a smile. I stood up, running my hand along the cart I'd pushed for 15 years. You know what the best revenge is, Sarah? What's that? Knowing that every time they tell this story, and they will tell this story, they'll have to admit that they handed their company to their janitor, piece by piece, simply because they thought he wasn't worth noticing. I looked out at the city skyline, now visible from my new office. They spent 15 years stepping over me, around me, through me, never realizing I was actually moving up, one cleaned office at a time. The next morning, as employees filed into work, they found their office spotless, personally cleaned by their new CEO. And on James Barrett Jr.'s old desk, now mine, sat a cleaning cart nameplate with a new inscription. Michael Chen, CEO, previously known as just the cleaning guy. Because sometimes the best way to rise to the top isn't to climb the corporate ladder, it's to quietly clean it, one rung at a time, while everyone else is too busy looking down to notice you looking up.